Now that we've determined the equilibrium point given the supply and demand functions, we want to determine the consumer surplus at this point. The formula for consumer surplus is given here, but let's review what this actually means before we calculate this. When a consumer receives X items of a product, a certain amount of pleasure or utility is derived, and consumer surplus is the utility or pleasure received for which there is no payment. If we take a look at this graphically, if this was the equilibrium point, where the x-coordinate is the quantity and the y-coordinate is the price, if we integrated the demand function on the interval from 0 to q, this would give us the area here in blue, which would represent the total pleasure or utility received from the quantity q items. But some of that utility is paid for, and that's represented by the price times the quantity, or the area of this rectangle here. So if we integrate the demand function from 0 to q to get the total utility, and then we subtract out the price paid for that utility, this region here, this area here represents the consumer surplus. This is the utility or pleasure received that was not actually paid for. Another way to think of consumer surplus is, let's say you're willing to pay $100 to purchase a new MP3 player, but then when you go to the store, it's on sale for $80. Well, because you were willing to pay $100 and it only cost you $80, of course you're happy, and that $20 that you saved could be viewed as consumer surplus. Now let's go back and take a look at our example. The consumer surplus is going to be equal to the definite integral on the interval from 0 to q. So the interval will be from 0 to 1600. And our integrand is going to be the demand function here. So I'll write this as 3,200 x to the negative 1/2 dx minus q times p, which will be 1,600 times $80. So here we'll apply the power. We'll have 3,200 times, this will be x to the negative 1/2 plus 1, that's going to be x to the 1/2. But then instead of dividing by 1/2, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal. So we'll multiply by 2. And we'll have to evaluate this at 1,600 and 0 minus 1,600 times 80. So here we'll have 6,400. And then we'll have, this is the square root of x, so we'll have the square root of 1,600 minus the square root of 0 minus 1,600 times 80. Well, the square root of 1,600 would be 40, so we'll have 6,400 times 40. That's 256,000 minus 1,600 times 80 is 128,000. So the consumer surplus would be this difference, which is $128,000. So this represents the amount of utility or pleasure received that was not actually paid for. In the next video, we'll take a look at the last question to determine the producer's surplus from the same situation.